Okay, okay. We're logging in, we're live, and we are back to another episode of Ask Someone Else with myself, Kaz, or Kazi from Property by Kazi. Today we're going to be speaking to Radhika, which I'm really excited about. Just a few general updates. So just to let everybody know, we are now live and available on Spotify podcast, Amazon podcast, Apple Music. So if you're catching this and got to go shoot somewhere else, these episodes will all be uploaded to all your digital streaming platforms, so you can watch and listen to us there. They're also going to be on the YouTube, Property by Kazi, all one word. So if you haven't already, make sure you head over there to subscribe. But without further ado, let me get my sensational guest. Added her, and we're going to talk property. So, hello. You're very punctual.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. And look at that lighting. Is that a ring light I can sense over there?
Yeah, it's a massive one.
I can see it. You're looking sensational. How are we today?
Thanks. I don't know where your video's gone. It just says loading now.
Okay. Well, I can see you. You can see me, and I think we're all good. How's your weekend been?
I can't see you. 1 second. Let me just turn off my.
No probs.
Yeah, perfect.
So yes, everyone, if you're not already following, make sure you're locked into all the socials. I've actually just seen, because I always do a little bit of snooping, and I've seen Radhika, you've actually joined Instagram. Oh no, sorry, YouTube about a week ago.
Yeah, I literally started a week ago. Do you know what? My aunt, who's my business partner, has been pushing me to do it for ages. And I saw loads of people doing it, and I was like, you know what? I hate doing videos, but I'm just gonna have to do it. And you've got to start somewhere, right? So yeah, I'm joining the YouTube clan, and yeah.
I feel like, do you know what? I feel like this should really be something we should talk about today, because you do smash a lot of stuff in social media. I like a lot of the stuff that you do. But I did actually think when I looked and I saw you only joined a week ago, I said, "Now you're missing a trick. You're good behind the camera. You got a lot of good content. You put a lot of energy into Instagram, and I don't feel like Instagram really gives us back enough a lot of the time." Like
Yeah.
the way the algorithm currently works, that you might have a load of followers, but nobody gets to see stuff if you're not literally posting 100 times a day.
Yeah.
So that's good that you've joined.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's another income stream. I don't know. I'm still at the beginning, but at least YouTube, you can monetize it if you get to a certain stage. So
Yeah,
it's another income stream that I didn't think I should have started that first, to be honest, because Instagram, I get people messaging me, but it's not really relevant to property, and I don't really want to promote something that I've never used, or my hobby is
yeah,
about property, not about anything.
yeah. I think it is hard to directly monetize Instagram, but what you get is the knockoffs and the spin-offs, that you might get a deal you didn't get before, or you might have a conversation, open a door to somewhere that you may not have been able to get into without a following or without that shop window you've created.
I actually did that over the weekend. So I went to Newcastle yesterday.
Okay.
There's a lady that she's put out a few posts. I've never really spoken to her, and she posted out a deal, and we have money sitting there at the moment because we've kind of moved away from HMOs at the moment. And
Okay.
she put up this post, and I was like, I never considered the Northeast, but let's go and see. And I got chatting to her, and then I also met Cove Properties as well. And I would have never met these people if it wasn't for social media. So it's just crazy to think how much it's changed my whole input into investing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think for me as well, like I never looked at social media to be like, I want to make money off it, because we're fortunate enough that we're in a field that if you're doing it well, which you should be if you're advertising it, that the money's there already. And it's kind of more of just in a marketing tool rather than something. Don't get me wrong, like if somebody turns around and starts saying, look, your YouTube videos are gonna get 100,000 views every month and we're gonna pay you an extra £1,000, I'll take it. But I don't think that was ever the driver, personally anyway, behind the socials.
No, not for Instagram anyway, not for me. But it's also, I think, building your authority as well, especially with YouTube, because even on Instagram, I was thinking of doing Instagram TV, but
Hmm.
I can't actually find how to find an Instagram TV unless you go on someone's profile. I don't even know how to create one anymore.
Yeah, it is a bit, it's weird. I think, they are saying, I watched an interview recently with CEO Cast he did with this young guy that's really into sort of social media and tech. And he was talking about saying, potentially,
Instagram could be the next platform to die, like when they say in terms of numbers, or so. I think it is really important to diversify. Do you use TikTok at all?
I did, but I literally haven't used it. Do you know
But
what?
you're so good with the reels though.
I know. I might just use all my content that I already have and just post on.
Yeah.
I'm so time poor that it still takes me a while to do all of this stuff and then do property. Everyone's like, do you actually invest in property? Like, what do
I
you do in
listen.
property? Do you just do Instagram and YouTube?
Listen, we're both just gonna become full-time content creators, and I don't know, like try and we might just randomly start fighting boxers because that seems like what the go-to thing is. You just become a content creator and then get a big payday from a pay-per-view. So maybe that's the way to go, and we just stop doing property.
Yeah,
So
that's
go
what.
on, talk to me about your journey, because obviously that's why we're actually here. So I think it'll be good to kind of touch 50-50 on the content side of things and your journey. So obviously we've got Radok here, but go and explain to us like sort of how old you are, when you got into property, what your first project was.
Yeah.
We'll start from there.
I'm 26 now. I
Hmm.
started when I was 23. I had no idea what I was doing. One of my friends posted an Instagram thing about some seminar or something, and I don't even think I even started my first corporate job at this point. I took a gap year and did all of that stuff after university, and I just wasn't sure what I was doing, and I didn't want to sit there and get a 20k job. And I was going through all these interviews within sports science, going to big corporations like Bupa, the NHS, things like that. And I just wasn't satisfied. And then I ended up working in sales and then just using that as a driver, but also found property on the side of that. And I just started to learn about it more and more. I was going to network meetings, YouTube, reading books, etc. But it was a little bit overwhelming. And I have a twin brother. If anyone doesn't know, I actually have a twin brother.
Okay.
But he
I
also
didn't know. Yeah.
post about it. But we started learning more about property. But he wanted to do his SEMA exams and go into accounting before he starts investing in property. So I kind of took that on myself. And my aunt was also investing. So two of my aunties also invest in property. And she actually had this opportunity to work with someone that she's known for quite a while. And if people don't know me, I use sources for every single deal that I have because I don't invest in London. And yeah, so she had a chance to work with this particular source and had two deals. I knew it worked on paper, and I was quite fortunate that she was like, look, this deal works, do your due diligence, and here you go. And so she basically gave me my first property, and we kind of went through it together. She was a little bit ahead of me, a couple of months ahead of me. But essentially, this sourcer and my aunties helped me do everything about my first property. And it was just amazing because I don't think I would have ever got that support if it wasn't for a close family member
Mhm.
to help me guide that. And then I started to want to do things on my own and see where I was getting to. And then we just said, let's just form a business between the three of us. It's just so much easier. We're all supporting each other. Why just not do it together? What's the point of you going for one deal? I go for one deal. Let's just do it together.
Okay, that's nice. So when you started, you said you started out looking at like you started out obviously learning and you went to networking events. What were the first events you went to and how did you find them?
So my first networking meeting was horrendous. So I had just been dating someone at this point, and he is now my boyfriend, but he came with me and it was the most awkward thing because this guy was just so intense. He came up to me, he knew we were new, we'd never been there before, but we just sat in the corner. It was so overwhelming.
Mm.
And he was like, who are you? What do you do? What's your job title? And all of this. And I was like, oh, I work in sales. That's just me. He was like, no, you are a property investor. You're a property developer. And it felt like imposter syndrome at the time. And it was so overwhelming. I never wanted to go back. And he was like, you need a network with 5 people. And he would drag me along, literally like pull me along and say, talk to this person, talk to this person. But I didn't even know I don't know what I was supposed to ask people, like, oh, how did you get into property? Like, I just don't know. And I think, when there's big known names in property as well,
Hmm.
when you're starting out, you don't know those big names. And I felt so awkward because there were some big names that I was just like, oh, this is so embarrassing. I should have known who they were before. But it was just really awkward. It put me off. But then I didn't want that to affect me going forward. And then I just started hearing property, 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 and then just started going again. So I went to PIN, I went to Progressive, I went to Legacy one as well. I can't remember the other ones I went to, but yeah, those were the main property ones I went to.
No, that's good. That's good. I think I struggled with networking in person.
Yeah.
And some people, like a business partner at the time, co-founder of a business, like a rent-to-rent business, when we first started going to those types, like you said, progressive and proper, prosperity and things like that, that we were going to. And I did find, like, I just like to go there and sort of take stuff in, as
Yeah.
opposed to just be like, oh, let me chat to this person, this person, this person, this person. I found it a bit, yeah, like you, a bit awkward, a bit overwhelming. I think a bit more of an introvert as opposed to people that just like really just out there and just love chatting. But I think that's what's good about the social media world, that you can drop somebody a DM, you can network kind of online a bit more within your comfort zone. I know they say get out of your comfort zone, but I think, to start with, to build that confidence. And for those who are looking to get into property that maybe are not, a natural, or that are more naturally introverted, you can sort of, network online, little message, you can build a rapport with somebody just through the socials, as opposed to just being stuck out in the deep end and being like, right, talk property. Because I've even got friends that are like estate agents, and they've been estate agents for like 10 years. And I would take them to an event like when I got more comfortable, but they just felt like, especially when, you've got sort of 20 people, well, I've done this much GDV, I've done this, I've done that. And they're like, oh, but I'm just an estate agent. And I'm like, bro, trust me, all these people want to meet estate agents because you've got the deals. Like, tell them like where you're working, whatever you. But I know it takes a while to get confident, in that regard. So then your first deal. So where are you actually based? You're from West London, is it?
Yeah, West London, near
West London.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're from West London, but your first deal was in what area?
Tedge's parents' house. I didn't know that.
Say that again, sorry?
I live around the corner from Tedge's parents' house.
Okay. Well, Ted will probably be visiting. There's love to visit. So okay, so you live in West London. What area was your first deal?
In Burnley, in Lancashire.
In Burnley. Okay. So and how, obviously, you had the support system in place. You didn't necessarily have the experience. How did you find sort of being quite an active sort of on the job learner? Like, what was the process like?
It was honestly a game changer, because everything you learn from a classroom essentially or online is very different to what you actually go through in real life. And anyone can say as much content as they want, and they can go and sell you the dream, like, do go onto this course, go on this course and learn. But the actual experience that I learned going through the process is so much more valuable, and so much more that I can explain to someone rather than someone telling me what to do. And I don't know if that's the kind of learner I am, but the experience of going through, like, how to buy a property. I'd never bought a property in my life. I didn't even know what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't know all the forms you had to go through. I didn't even know you had to go through money laundering. There was so much that I just didn't know. And it was very early on. So I think I started in March or April time in 2018. And that first property was presented to me in June or July. So it was only a couple of months that I had to like go through the process of this. I didn't even know you can even get a mortgage under 50k for a first time buy-to-let investor. Just little things like that as well. So the on-site experience is just
I think that's very much it. Understanding, because a lot of the reason why I do these lives, there are so many people that are, a lot of young people, a lot of people at different stages in their property journey. But the majority, I think, of my following are people that are trying to, obviously, they're starting out. They haven't maybe started yet. And I think understanding one thing you touched on, that what type of learner are you? Because so many people say, I'm this age, how do I get started in property? But I think it's not as straightforward as just that, because it's not one size fits all from everybody. If you're an active learner, maybe actually going out there and doing is better for you. If you're more of an academic, maybe reading, researching, then filling in your gaps. If you're like, you need structure, then maybe a course might be for you. But I think really to kind of get your foot in the door and start doing stuff, you need to work out what works best for you and play to your strengths.
Yeah, most definitely. I think you also need to know what you enjoy in property as well, because that will make a big difference to how successful you are and where your business goes. Because if you actually go out and enjoy doing the refurb, for example, you go like to go and project manage, that's something you can focus on and really excel in that area instead of having to do everything and being average at everything. You can still be
Yeah.
in one field, but let the rest of the people do it like in their own things. I don't do anything. I don't like looking at properties. I don't like going out and putting in offers.
Yeah, and this is what's so funny. Like we're literally the opposite. Like that bit, I love that. I love finding a deal because I just like something. I love when something's been sitting on the market and then I realize you lot have missed it. You lot have missed it. Nah, 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 nah. Like that's like my win. But like you said, it's what motivates you because the other side of things when I used to work when I had a rent to rent business, I just like the administration and the level of admin involved in lettings just wasn't my strength. So having to, stay compliant with this regulation, that regulation, these notices, that notices, even the customer service from a tenant perspective, I much preferred, like you said, like being out there doing the viewings, project managing, being on site, etc. And it's like, yeah, I think for budding property investors or developers, know yourself and play into your strengths. I think you hit the
Yeah.
nail on the head there.
Yeah, definitely. But I also think because I work in a very stressful sales job as well, like constantly like going off, it's like basically the same though, buying property and going through the process and building up your pipeline. It's literally sales and
Yeah.
what a day-to-day basis. So having the stress from that, I don't think I can transfer that into the stress of putting down offers, getting rejected. It's just the follow-up systems and checking every single day, etc. So I think, yeah, you got to play to what you're really good at, what you enjoy as well.
Okay. And then so talk about it in Burnley or
Yeah,
Burton?
in Lancashire.
Burnley.
Yeah.
Okay. So what type of property was the first one a HMO conversion?
Yeah, so I decided to go through the HMO conversion because that's all I was taught. I was always taught every time you go to property network meetings, if you speak to another investor, everyone's like, go down the HMO route. So I just did that based on what people were telling me. In hindsight, I wish I'd just changed that into a buy to let, to be honest. And the reason I say that is because the numbers are really good on paper, but just the area, I had so many problems with it when conversion, but I can talk that in a bit, but let me go back to kind of the HMO conversion. Yeah. So it was £39,999 to purchase. So it had to be a cash buy. I was so grateful that my family were able to help me and my aunt convinced my family to help me as well. There was a £20,000 council loan to refurb the property, so it's the empty homes loan. So I think I literally put in about £5,000 extra on the refurb. I haven't yet got a mortgage on it, so I've never really valued the property, so I don't really know where the end value sits on.
Okay.
But it was getting rented, and I always had tenants in there, but tenants kept coming and leaving. So I think the best month I ever had was about £700 minus lettings fees. So profit wise, it was 300. With remember there's no mortgage on here as well, so if I had taken out the mortgage, then COVID hit and it was a blessing, and it'd been on rent. I was getting over £1,000 minus lettings fees every month, not minusing bills or anything like that, but just gross, minus the lettings was about £1,000. And now it's gone the complete opposite, and I'm only getting £75 a week, so it's about 300-ish, £350 a month right now. So now I'm like considering, do I change it into a buy to let, or do I just keep it as a HMO at the moment, because I'm in negative at the moment. So
yes,
sorry,
yes.
no, I kind of like spurted everything out there, but yeah.
It's all right. I think, but that's it. And I think it's good. Like, it's not good, but to hear the wins and the losses in property are important because that's where the lessons come from. And understanding, what makes sense, when doing a deal, when it just because, like I said, like everybody's talking HMOs doesn't mean HMOs are going to be right all the time for every property that you're doing. So you mentioned you got the council loan. Was that something you were aware of that you could get prior to buying the property?
Yeah, so part of the deal that was sourced to me, it said you have the option to have the £20,000 council loan, which is interest free for 10 years. You just pay it off on a monthly basis.
Okay.
And obviously when you're starting out, every little helps. So if you
Yeah.
can if you can get all of these types of loans to help you out, and it's interest free for 10 years, you know what, for me, like, I would have been like, yes, I need that, because it would have helped me convert the property into a HMO.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
they always say, obviously, when looking at money, if you can get cheap money, which is the same reason that loads of people took the bounce back loans, because nobody's going to ever offer you, you know, money at like 2% a year for the next 5 or potentially 10
Exactly.
years. So it's really, really good. And particularly if you're in the investment field, just looking at how you can maximize, you know,
Yeah.
anything that you've got, particularly for first time investors or first time buyers, the difference, you know, obviously this property did like we weren't able to mortgage it, but you can imagine if the property was maybe 80,000 and you had to put in a 25% deposit of 20,000, you're effectively saving half your capital if you can get a £20,000 loan to develop the property. So I think using creative solutions and, you know, looking at, you know, there's more than one way to do things is always important. Someone else, do you know the name of the loan that you got?
Yeah, it's called Empty Homes Loan. I haven't heard anyone do it since COVID, but before COVID, or the pandemic lockdown, I know there's a few councils that do it, but you can't just go to the council saying what properties fall under home zone. You have to go through trying to find the deprived areas within that location and find out where the boarded houses are, and because somewhere like London, like, you're probably not going to get it, or somewhere
Yeah.
you're probably not going to get it, because those are more of the developed houses. But it was a scheme that was put in place to help those rundown houses get back on the ladder, where get back onto
Yeah, being occupied effectively.
being occupied. Sorry, that was the word.
It's pressure. It's the pressures of the camera. You know exactly what you want to say to the camera goes on, and then you're like, ah.
Yeah, so they effectively don't want empty houses. So if they can do
Yeah.
anything in their power to help developers where people can't actually afford to buy houses in that area, but they can work with the council to give it back to the council any some way, shape or form to get it occupied, then they will do everything in their power to help that. And if that means giving loans out to redevelop the property, then they would. But it is very postcode dependent.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a case of obviously like a regeneration. It's a
Yeah.
specific measure to obviously help in a specific council, obviously subject to them having the budget. But I would say, you know, for those that, you know, are interested in something like that, off the back of COVID and Brexit, I think there's going to be a lot of fiscal measures to try and help to stimulate the housing market and the economy as a whole. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe not that exact scheme, but some similar schemes for areas where they're trying to incentivize regeneration and jobs, particularly in areas where maybe they've invested in infrastructure as well. You wouldn't be surprised if you see similar types of schemes. Obviously, yes, that's really good. Okay, so that was deal one. And where did you go from there? So what was your next strategy from there?
Yeah, so I actually took a bit of a break from property because I was so overwhelmed with everything, and I was doing everything on my own, trying to find properties on my own, and I didn't want to go back into Burnley because I wasn't sure how it was going to work, and it took a bit of a while to get the refurb going and stuff, and I basically wanted to come closer to home, and going to Burnley every single weekend or once a month was a bit stressful and
How
expensive.
long was the journey?
So we went on train. It was about 5.5 hours, but it's like
Oh,
four different
wow.
trains that you have to get, and it's you can't really sit there and do stuff. And yeah, it was about 5.5 hours one way.
Wow.
So a little bit far. But I always wanted to come closer to home. I just wasn't sure how to do it. And I started doing everything on my own, like sending out landlord letters, and just everything was just getting a bit too much. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even have a refurb team. So even if I went to go view properties, I had no idea what the refurb was going to be. So the more I started to do all of these things, the more I realized I can't actually do it on my own. And I just got a bit, what's the word? Like, I just got so demotivated to even carry on a property business. I was like, I've got property, you know what, it's fine, it's renting out. I'll just keep it as that. You know, money is money at the end of the day. And I still had a job that I was quite comfortable with. And then I think I started the conversations again with my aunts, and then we started again. But we made the same mistake again, and we were trying to do everything on our own. And because we all worked full time, or we still all work full time, going on Saturdays, we were just getting viewings cancelled. We didn't know the areas. We were going to all these places and it just wasn't adding up. And it became more stressful than not having to do property. So we decided to work with sources again, but closer to home. And we were quite fortunate that we spoke to some horrendous people, some really nice people, some horrendous people, some nice people that we just didn't really work with. We just didn't connect as well in business, but we did as people. But then we found this couple who were quite new into sourcing. They did their own projects, but they quite new to sourcing, but they had a really good builder that we all knew. And we just decided to go for our first project with them, which was the HMO that's all over my Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the second project that I did with my aunts, yeah.
Okay, and where was that one?
In Peterborough.
Okay. Yeah, that one's nice actually. If you haven't checked out already, make sure you check out Radika's Instagram for that one, because I liked there was quite a lot of like creative furnishing and design elements that went into it. It wasn't, your sort of bog standard like just IKEA white walls HMO. It was a lot of very flary. So yeah, I definitely recommend going to have a look at that if you want some inspiration for your latest HMO. And then what were the numbers like on that one?
So we're still going through the refinance at the moment.
Okay.
We bought it for 180,000. I think that all the fees and everything added up to like 28,000. And the refurb on that was 107,000. So it's quite a hefty refurb. And one of the reasons was because we put in, so when you said about the studio, so we put in the microwave into the cupboards. So we reduced space because we knew we couldn't have ovens in there, otherwise it would just go single-banded tax bracket. So we said, okay, how do we reduce worktop space? Let's put it into the cupboard. So that was a little bit more. We went for a bit of a higher finish as well, and the bathrooms and everything like that as well. Nothing structurally like was done apart from the whole rip out, but nothing that needed to be.
Did you go back to brick there?
Go
back to brick. And how many rooms is it now?
6. So it was a 3-bedroom. We converted it into 5 studios and 1 ensuite, and then we did a 3-meter extension at the back.
Okay then, and that's where you've got a kitchen, your general kitchen. Sort of, is it open plan kitchen, living room, or what? Is it just a kitchen?
There's no living room, so so the kitchen space was massive already. So we cut back on the kitchen a little bit, just to add room to the back.
For the extra room.
Otherwise it would have been too small. We wouldn't be able to get a studio out of it. But the types of tenants that the lessons agency has is gamers, so they didn't need as much in the kitchen.
Oh, it's just a gamer household.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how cool. I'm a secret gamer. Like if you see behind me, you can't see it right now, but right here, if you can hear, it's like my whole gaming setup with like my headset and everything. I might move into the gaming house in Peterborough,
It's like your man cave.
yeah. That's it. I'm actually just we're completing on a new place, so I'm actually going to be doing hopefully I'll take everyone through the journey, but a really nice detached property out just past Croydon, so sort of going a little bit greener, but it's really nice, massive garden, but it's currently 2,000 square foot and going to be extending it to about 3.5 to 3 point. So yes, I'm gonna have the gamer room, gonna have the full setup, everything there, gamer room, poker room, everything, hopefully there.
That'll be
and then I'll just be abusing the Peterborough gamers online. That's nice. Good. Also, sorry, someone just asked again, how much was the refurb?
Is it weird that I can't actually see the comments?
Do you know what? I'm the hostess with the mostess today, so I'll be telling. So SXM1 __ has asked, how much was the refurb?
107,000.
And what do you hope your revaluation to be?
So we've just put it in for 422,000, which it's going to come as a down value a little bit. So our worst case kind of scenario we're hoping is 370, but I think I'm hoping we get the 422, but I think we're going to push for the 390-ish mark, just around, give or minus 5k.
Do you know, are they giving you a commercial valuation or a bricks and mortar valuation? Commercial valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, hopefully if they, have you already got tenants in there?
Yeah, so 5 out of the 6 rooms, one person's just
Okay.
left, so 5 out of the 6 rooms, but we took a bit of a hit on the rent, just to get those few rooms like filled up as soon as possible.
That
But
that's what might mess you up on your valuations,
yeah,
because when they do and they meet with your agent, they just value it based on current market conditions. So even if the market picks up in 6 months' time and you can get a spike of 20%, they're gonna say, look, can we see the ASTs? We've seen it. So you
mm,
might find that, yeah, that'll be. But I think that's when you have to think a bit more proactively and think, okay, what product do we take now? Do we maybe now take a slight hit on the rate and take a flexible product and pay a product fee because we know we could potentially refinance in a shorter space of time and get that uplift? Or do you take the money now and take maybe a lower rate sort of thing? So that's the sort of trade-off that we have to kind of consider with these revals.
yeah, definitely. I think we're just gonna wait. I mean, the valuation's happening on the 29th of this. We had to wait 6 weeks for a valuation to be booked in. It was so frustrating.
Yeah,
I think we're on bridging at the moment. We're paying quite expensive bridging, so anything to delay it is just causing a nightmare.
yeah.
But we're going to see what we get for the valuation. I mean, if we get below 370, we're going to dispute it. But I think the worst case scenario, we're quite happy with like 375. So
Okay, yeah, that was actually funny enough. It's like you can't see the comments, but you can see them here because Youssef did just literally ask, "Did you use bridging to get to your second deal?"
yeah,
So that's your.
yeah, we
So you,
used bridging and then we used development finance on top, which was a whole new learning curve. In it.
okay, how did you find that? How did you find Did you have to wait till you got your planning to get your development finance, or were you able to get it straight away?
So there was no planning needed because the three
Okay,
in September, I think, last year,
okay,
that you can extend it by 3 meters under PD. So we
oh,
didn't need it, but we needed the HMO license or approval that we're going to get a HMO
mm.
license in that area. Um, what was the question again? Sorry.
So
I got,
okay, so you didn't need, so they were happy to give you effectively your
yeah,
development finance based on your proposed development scheme. That, look, we're just doing a 3 meter extension. It's
yeah,
all just going to be under building regs and effectively PD because it's just a HMO license, so licensing. And they were happy to give you your development finance. And did they give it to you in full, or did they give it to you in arrears and you had to pay and then they would pay you?
yeah. So they gave it in arrears, but basically, when you submit development finance, you have to submit the schedule of works and what you think the
Yeah,
reval would be, what the revaluation would be. So they'll only base it if they're happy on the specific valuation, which they will go and do. So I
yeah,
think you pay a little bit more upfront to get a prop val done.
yeah.
Uh, and see what they came at. They actually we made a massive mistake, and I don't know where this number came from, but we put it in as 325, but they came back and said it was going to be 315,000. I don't know where this number has come from, but my builder has done quite a few HMOs, 6-bed HMOs,
Mm.
and he's got between 380 and 422 in that area. So we're quite confident that we'll get that. I don't know where that
Yeah.
came from. But they did ask for the 10 grand up front. I think after we've exchanged and a day before we were about to complete, they asked for 10 grand up front to make up that difference. Um,
Okay.
but in terms of the development finance, we had to pay in arrears, but we could only pull it out once a month. So whatever you paid for example, for November, then you can submit to go get that. A quantity surveyor has to go out, do a tick
Mm.
box exercise. You have to pay for that quantity surveyor, and it was like £650 plus that. And then they basically give it in arrears if they're happy with it. It's so
Yeah.
annoying because they make so much money because all they have to do is, yep, the kitchens have gone in, or like there's new flooring, or it's been rewired, and that's literally it. And then you get your money back.
Yeah, that's literally, and to be fair, I haven't. I've always used bridging. I've never really used development finance. But again, because this property space, one of the main barriers to entry is capital.
Yeah,
So if you are able to find a good deal, do your numbers to make sure it stacks and to make sure there is enough meat on the bone to make money. You can sort of leverage and gear slightly higher. So you bridge the initial deal, and as you mentioned, and get finance. So all you would need is the £10,000 up front, and then they would fund that work. So obviously there'd be an interest cost, but it means that you can do slightly bigger deals earlier on, and help to sort of expedite your journey. So I think it's good you touched on that. And I'm rubbish. I'm actually rubbish for not using it. Like when I speak to, Sam Norris and Alex and other brokers that I speak to, and they look at me like, why do you not use development finance? I'm like, and my honest answer is because I don't want to pay a surveyor to come out and like sign off stuff that has already. I could just send you my building control sign offs. I
Yeah.
could send to you that it's been signed off. That okay, look, yeah, we've done the groundwork. Okay, have we? Yeah, we've done the groundwork. There you go, take it. Yeah, have all the steels and structural bit stuff been signed off? Yep, it's all been signed off, but actually you have to pay. So you said at the end, if you end up having like 100K and you have 10 site visits, that means they're literally going to charge you £6,500
Yeah.
for the site visits on top of the interest. I think it's a balance, but at the end of the day, although I'm sort of bad mouthing it slightly, if it still makes sense and you cost those costs into your end, your end numbers, and you still make a profit, you're better off. What's that saying? A bird in the hand is better than two in the sky. You're better off doing that deal today than waiting, for a year or 6 months until you've maybe got that funding, or it could be 10 years.
Yeah. And you touched upon it as what finance you're getting as well, because if you can get cheaper finance, then obviously you wouldn't use
Yeah.
finance or bridging in that case. If you can get cheaper finance, then yes, if you can always fall back onto development finance, you don't have to use it.
Yeah.
So even if like you propose your deals to say, I want to use development finance, and it has to be of a certain size. You can't just say, okay, it's a 10 grand refurb. It has to be of a certain size
Yeah.
to qualify for it. But yeah, like you can always have it in the background. You won't get charged interest until that they pay you the first amount. So that's what we're going to continue. If we stick with HMOs, that's what we're going to continue doing, is just keeping it in the background just in case if we need it.
Yeah. Because that's it, literally. I mean, obviously, subject to complying with FCA regulations when raising money. If you were able to raise private equity, which is effectively just debt from, it could be a friend, a family member, or just somebody else who wants to invest, you could raise debt finance, which means like a fixed rate of return. And if you could raise debt finance at, even up to 10%, it would still be cheaper than the development finance by the time you include the site visits, because the site visits, depending on the again, this all depends on the amount. Because if you're raising 1 million, a site visit of 650 becomes 0.065% rather than a lot more over the year. So it all depends. Do your numbers, but I think the good thing about development finance and bridging loans are I would compare them very much so to the difference between having to go out to a shop and find the trainers you really want or using a personal shopper. You're always going to spend that bit more using the personal shopper, but they're almost going to guarantee you they can get you the product. And that's the same with development finance and bridging loans. I believe it's Imran84 has asked, what is a bridging loan? Do you want to answer that?
Essentially, I don't even know if this is right or wrong with the terminology. It's just like something that's embedded.
It's pressure. You go for it. We'll just pretend this is like an HUA 5-mark exam answer, so nothing too strenuous.
Essentially, it's like an unregulated loan, isn't it? It's not FCA regulated. It's essentially a few companies out there that will value the property and give you the. How do you explain what a bridging loan is?
Yeah, I mean, so a bridging loan effectively is it's a it's a short-term loan for a specific purpose. Generally speaking, most developers use them on the basis that we're buying a property or buying an asset with the scope to add value. So the lender would look at the risk and reward and say they can see where the potential value is or what the uplift is. So whenever you're presenting to say you want to borrow money from one of these bridgers, they would want to know what your exit is. Are you going to sell? Are you going to sell with planning? Are you going to refurb? And effectively, it's what is the fit for purpose lending product for when you are buying, a property to add value to or to sell in the short term. Because in reality, a residential mortgage or a buy-to-let mortgage are long-term lending products, and so they're not really fit for purpose. Like you said, they're unregulated. And they have considerably higher rates of interest, but you're effectively supposed to build that interest into whatever profits you hope to be making from that deal itself. is I guess my best way, but I'm sure, don't worry, I'm sure Sam Norris is going to come on and slate both our answers. So
Yeah.
Sam, if you're in the comments, just capture this little bit, screen record it, and then say he's going to use it as a caption to say why Kaz and Radhika are both wrong.
This is how not to explain a bridging project.
Exactly that.
Bridging as well is basically mortgage fraud to get a buy to let and then do a heavy refurb on it. So you have to go with a short-term product like bridging to do those heavy refurbs as well.
Yeah. And there are a lot of, you know, companies that cross over between both. So for example, if you were to use a company like Precise or Paragon, both of those have like bridge to buy to let products. So effectively you can bridge it in the short term, whether that be a month or 2 months, on the basis that they're going to switch you to a pre-agreed buy to let rate based on an uplift in value or based on whatever the case may be. So there are very specific products. If you are looking to use a buy to let, like you mentioned, it has to be a really light refurb. So literally bit of painting, decorating, new carpets. Maybe you could squeeze in a bathroom, but generally speaking, you've got a maximum of like 6 weeks and they want it let out because you're buying to let. You're not buying to refurb.
Yeah.
The hint is in the name.
Yeah.
So Yusuf has asked another question actually. So what methods are you currently using to find deals as the market has gone crazy?
So my method has always been to work with property sources, and this is a whole another conversation to find property sources, but my strategy has always been to use property sources. So at the moment I have one in Lancashire, I have one in Peterborough. We've stepped away from Peterborough because the deals that we're getting at the moment are just not as fruitful. They're like leaving in a lot of money.
They're not juicy.
They're not, no.
Who doesn't like a juicy deal?
It's just what's crazy, because I know as soon as because I've gone through so many, like I've gone through one deal in Peterborough, but because we were going for another purchase and then that fell through, and then just like analysing deals in Peterborough, I know exactly what works now in Peterborough. So like if someone just says the basic numbers, I can tell you if it works or if it doesn't work, which is quite crazy. But so now and then I spoke to two in the northeast when I met them yesterday, potentially going for a buy to let at the moment. I can't remember what the questions are now, like they're forgetting like what they are.
All right. So basically I was just asking how you source, or how you source deals, which you mentioned were through sources. Okay, so I guess then a follow-up question that I would have was, how do you find, or how do you pick a good property sourcer from a bad one, particularly in an area like, not like Peterborough that you're familiar with, but maybe an area that you don't have that build-up of local knowledge?
Yeah, this changes on a day-to-day basis. Honestly, it changes, and now that I'm like kind of bigger on social media as well, it changes. But essentially, one is connecting with them and asking them and just building a relationship with them. And I think that's the most important thing, is building a relationship with them, because you're effectively trusting them so much to find you deals, because they're not liable for anything. You are liable 100%.
Yeah.
For everything that you buy. So even if you sign that agreement saying, okay, we're ready to exchange, you've signed the sourcing agreement, you're effectively 100% reliable. So you need to make sure that you can build a really good relationship with this particular person. And then I use social media now just to vet the person, seeing what they're posting on social media, who else they're following with, who else recommends them. The one thing I would say about recommendation with property sources, it's so hit and miss, because I can recommend someone but they might not work for you, or you can recommend someone but I completely cannot vibe with them. So it's really hit and miss. But yeah, check out their social media, because if they've got quite a big following as well, like one bad post will really ruin their reputation. So, and then the other thing is just go out and check out their projects, who they're working with, who their power team are, what's actually included when they're sourcing. So are they doing the project management for you, or are they just finding the deal and here you go, move on, if that makes sense. So there's a lot to it, but one is just making sure that you build that relationship and the trust has to be there. So even if that means spending 3 months to get to know them, going visiting their projects, viewing that area. The other thing that I would say is that I don't work with sources who do the whole of the UK. They have to be specialised in that area.
Yeah.
And they need to know that area like the back of their hand, because there's so many sources that I've worked with. Oh, where do you want property? Well, I don't know. You tell me, you're the expert. And they were like, oh, do you want it in Yorkshire? Do you want it in Manchester? Do you want it in London? I was like, what, do you have teams everywhere? It's like, yeah, I do viewings everywhere. I was like, I can't trust people like that because they're not specialised in their area.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good way. I think definitely the stuff you touched on in regards to social media is a good way to kind of validate the sources. I think I've struggled to work with sources. I have a few that I've used in the past, but my thing is like do you know, I'm mad specific about how they present the deal. Like if you present a deal, I just want it, like I want to be able to, from what you've sent me, like show me the comparable, show me why I should buy it, like sell me the deal so I can just make the decision there and then. If you send me a deal when I've got 1,000 things to do in any given day, I haven't got time to go and like I'll go and look at if I'm saying I'm going to buy it, at that point in time I'll go and do additional due diligence. But I want you to sell me on it from you sending me the deal over. So tell me, okay, like give or take, like this is the refurb cost, this is the sourcing fee, this is X, Y, or Z, this is your stamp. Like just put it in a, like, you know, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, give it to me there and then, give me a couple of comparables, give me some recently sold, and then it's like, okay, you don't want to get to a point where it sounds good on paper and then you do the due diligence and you're like, it doesn't make sense. Because then you just feel like that person's wasted your time.
Yeah, it's really hit and miss. And I have spoken to some dodgy people and I'm like, how do, like, the thing is when you're presenting deals, it's so easy to fabricate the numbers. And that's why the comparables, like you mentioned, are so important. I don't really care if you can say, even like not even have a done up value on it, here's like the comparables, this is what we estimate it to be. I'm more happy with that because I can see that the property sold for X amount, or like the last 5 properties in that area have sold for X amount, essentially.
Or someone sends you a comparable and it's like 3 miles away and you're like, this isn't even the same area. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
What's particularly in London? Like if someone's sending me a comparable that's not in the same postcode, I'm like, a road away is like £80,000 difference. That's a whole different place. That might as well be like England and Wales, like when you're looking at like different boroughs in London. But yeah, I think that there are, like, not too bad, there are some amazing sources out there. I was trying to think of one to shout out and I can't, like, and so they're gonna tell me off after they watch this back and say, why didn't you big me up? So my sources that have sent me deals, thank you very much. But yeah, I think it's just a case of finding somebody that works for you. I think we've maybe got time for 2 more questions. So let me have a look.
Can I just add something while you look for
Yeah, you go for it.
It very much depends on what your strategy is, because if you're someone that's on the ground doing this full time and you have the capacity to go and get your own deals, go and do your own deals. That's not to say don't work with sources, but you're going to be a better chance of going and getting your own deals and finding out the better deals, because 9 out of 10 sources will always have the best deals for themselves or pass it on to their close investors that they're already working with, that they know that that person can commit. So yeah, just making sure that, you know, you're not always going to get the best deals from sources, but they're still going to work for you.
Yeah, I think kind of just to answer Yusuf's follow-up question, like I myself, and I think you kind of touched on it, I specialize. So I only do deals, give or take, in South London. So what that means is I can go and look at 20 deals, 100 deals in the space that it would take somebody else to analyze, you know, 1 or 2, because I know straight away from the numbers that doesn't make sense. That's not the right price. That property, that area doesn't have that demand for that type of 1 bed, 2 bed, etc. So for me, I find deals by specializing, really knowing the areas. The last 3 properties that I've bought, whether or not some have been at auction, sorry, if I go through like the last sort of 18 months, I think like four of them, I bought 4 properties on the open market. Most of them have been, apart from one that I managed to luckily like get the offer through, even though there was like 30 offers on the table. Were all been sitting there for a while, and it's a case of you make money in property from seeing what other people have missed and seeing potential that other people have missed. Now your sourcer can do that for you as well, but potentially adding a fee, and you know, if you're not like number 1 on their list of people to call, then you maybe won't get all the best deals. But if you can kind of work that into your skill set and your toolbox of being able to actually spot a deal. So if I focus on conversions at the moment, like converting houses into multiple dwellings, if I can see a house for a great price that other people think, oh, that one probably wouldn't work, but because I know, the local planning requirements, know that council, have a good relationship with my architect, etc., it means that I'm a lot more likely to not be able to see what a deal is and isn't. So generally, I'd say just specialize and focus on one thing in particular. I think the last question I'd like to ask you, I think it just kind of spins off from your last deal, which was from, let me find out who it was from actually, because it's from my,
I can't believe I can't.
always. What did you say?
I can't believe I can't see the questions.
Yeah, they're just for me. No. I don't know why. Because if they ask them in the question box, I can pin it. But most people are just talking in the comments. I need to remind people of that at the beginning as well. Next week, I'm not going to answer any questions that are not in the comment section. I'm going to answer just only the ones in the question box. So Angie Gardner, UK, has said, in regards to your deal, would it not have been better to do a JV rather than a bridging loan?
That is a very good question.
That's why I saved it for last.
That is, the thing is, there's 3 of us in the business. So by the time you take our profits out and give 50% away, I'm effectively only getting a sixth of the profit. So the rental on this one, at the moment, is around 950 profit, without that last bedroom being taken. So yeah, it's around 957 or something like that. To only get a sixth of that is not worth my time. And I know we're doing it over the kind of long term, but and the equity, etc., in the properties, but getting a sixth out of that is just not worth my time. I can't put in a lot of effort for that project. If it was on a bigger scale and the profits were bigger, then I would consider a JV. But yeah. So
sorry, for those that don't know, by the way, because randomly we use acronyms and not everybody's into property. So JV is joint venture as well. I didn't even say it either. So JV is a joint venture. So effectively that's when you get another partner in, and they will provide funding for a percentage of the profits. So what that means is rather than raising debt, like we spoke about through a bridging loan or through a private investor, you're raising equity to fund the deal. Now, through that equity, generally speaking, you have to offer a higher rate of return than you would if it was debt. But then it can be secured if they're a part owner. But generally speaking, if you're raising equity in terms of selling shares, then it's sort of unsecured and they have the same level of risk that you do. For me, it just depends on stacking the numbers, because number one, you don't have to offer them 50%. You can choose what to offer them because it's your deal. And they may raise a significant amount of capital, but you only need to offer them 20% of the profits. You may need to offer them more. And I think in a lot of instances, it depends on where you are, what you can offer, what your options are. But effectively what it is a cost of finance, because they're financing you. Whether they're putting the money in as a JV partner, it's still a cost of finance. Yeah. So in a lot of cases, you just work out what works best for you. And in your instance, you said, you know what, it was cheaper for you to get a bridge than it would be to get a JV partner. The other side of that is you also are now in a relationship, would be that business relationship. You're in a relationship with that partner. So you need to consider the fact that, is this somebody you can actually get on with or work with in the long term? So one person's kept asking, I'm going to ask you one more time. What was the name of that 10-year loan again you got? For
empty loans.
Empty
home loans.
Empty home loans. Okay, amazing. Well,
just going to the agreement, it's something that I was absolutely scared to go into an agreement with someone that I didn't know unless it was family. So the only reason I went into business with my family, with my aunts, is because I've known them my whole entire life, obviously, but I'm very close with them.
Respect that.
So like I am very close to them and I know them and I could trust them, whereas I don't even
trust is key, like, because you'd be stressed every day if you're working with somebody you don't trust.
I'm very scared to work with someone where I am very hands off. I don't even know if, I mean, I'm not going to put this out there, but I'm very hands off in our business. We have someone that finds us deals. We've got a builder in place. I don't do anything in my business. I mean, I obviously do a lot, but I analyze the deals and things like that. But
I was
people,
wondering how you had all the time to do the reels.
I'm a content creator. That's my full.
That's amazing. I'm jealous. I wish though one day I'm going to be a full-time content creator.
I am a content creator, but honestly, I don't do as much as what the whole property investing world thinks I do, or what other people do on the ground. Like, I'm not on the ground as much. I barely go and visit the properties. Most of my stuff is finding good sources, raising money, and content creation. So
But I think, I think that's a lot of the time, especially if you're fortunate enough to be part of a team, specialize, because
yeah,
you're only as good as the sum of the parts of everybody. If you can specialize in content creation, if you're good at that, if you're good at raising finance, if you're good at building relationships with sources, if you specialize in that and you've got your aunt to specialize in other areas, you're going to be a lot more successful than like somebody potentially tries to do everything themselves, who's only as good as, the sum of themselves, as opposed to multiple people.
exactly. And the JV, I think if I go into a JV, it needs to be on a bigger development. I don't think buying something for 250k is
Would.
going to be as fruitful for me. I'd rather go and raise that money, because I know I've done it. I've raised that money before. So
Yeah.
why would I give away a larger equity or a larger percentage when I can just raise that money for less percentage? But if it was going into kind of the £1 million development, or like maybe 500,000, then maybe I would consider it. Just depends how I feel on if I can raise that money or not.
No, of course. It's just a case, again, just a case of cost of finance, how you feel, what you want out of the deal. Sometimes it's better to take 50% out of a couple of million. Sometimes it's better to take 100% out of a couple of thousand. And sometimes it goes the other way around. But I think it's just a case of you working out what is best for you. But Radhika, we're going to have to wrap things up. It's been amazing. How have you found it?
Oh, it's been so good. I forget that people are watching this because I can't see anyone. But it's
All
just,
right, no pressure. We're just flowing. We're just vibes in. That's our Sunday. We have been, it is my 18th now, back to back. Haven't missed a Sunday. So it's been amazing. It's been great to have you on. So you have recently joined YouTube. You're on Instagram. For those who are listening on potentially Spotify or Apple Music, where can they find you? Where are your socials at?
my socials, I'm not on Spotify or anything, but go and check this.
No, I mean on Instagram, because they can't see you if they're listening. They need to know where you're at.
Sorry. So my Instagram is Radhika_ all about property, and my YouTube is Take a Break with Radhika, but everything's linked to my Instagram page. So just go and check out my Instagram page.
Amazing, amazing. So that was me, Kazi, with Radhika. Another episode of Ask Someone Else. We're live each and every Sunday on Instagram, 6 p.m. So make sure you lock in, save the date, set your notifications so you don't miss out all this great free content. If you're not already subscribed to the YouTube, sign up on Spotify, Apple Music. I think we got our first 50 downloads with our first podcast from season 1. It was with Tex, the developer. Our latest one that's going to be out today, if not tomorrow, will be with Alex from AA Drafting, talking all things architecture in this property space. So if you want to learn about HMO conversions to new builds, to conversions from a house to multiple dwellings, make sure you download that episode and have a listen. Leave a review if you can. Next week, we've got someone very special. I've been bringing the ladies through. So we've got Lorraine Thomas, I believe. Is it Thomas? Thomas. Yeah, Lorraine Thomas from her Instagram is View From My Window. Check her out, see what she does. She's been doing some amazing developments, amazing projects, working with some young people, helping them get into developments. She's got a really good conversion scheme currently going on in Thornton Heath that we're going to be talking about, plus loads of other things that she's been working on. Radhika, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Everybody, thank you for locking in, and we shall see you all hopefully next week.
Have a lovely week.
Take care. Bye.